Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fluent English Daily. In today's lesson, we are going to practice an IELTS Speaking Part 1 topic called careful reading. The questions in this topic focus on everyday habits, such as reading instructions, checking important information, and avoiding mistakes. Although the topic may sound simple, it gives you many opportunities to demonstrate natural vocabulary, clear explanations, and accurate grammar. In this lesson, we will examine 4 common questions in detail. You will learn how to understand each question quickly, build a clear answer of 2 to 4 sentences, and support your ideas with natural reasons and examples. We will also study useful vocabulary such as skim, double check, misread, overlook, and follow instructions. The goal is to help you produce answers that sound specific, relaxed, and suitable for Band 7 or above. Let's begin. Before answering the questions, let's review what the examiner expects in IELTS Speaking Part 1. Part 1 is a short conversation, not a lecture. You do not need to give an extremely long or academic response. In most cases, 2 to 4 sentences are enough. However, you should avoid one-word answers, such as yes, no, or sometimes. These answers do not give you enough opportunity to demonstrate your vocabulary, grammar, and fluency. A useful structure is the ARD frame. A means answer directly. R means give a reason. And D means add a detail or example. For example, yes, I usually read instructions carefully because I do not want to make avoidable mistakes. This is particularly important when I am completing an official form. The answer is short, but it contains a clear position, a reason, and a specific detail. For Band 7 and above, try to sound natural, relevant, and connected. Do not give memorized speeches. Respond directly to the question and develop one clear idea. Now let's review some useful vocabulary for this topic. The first verb is skim. To skim something means to read it quickly in order to understand the general idea. For example, I usually skim simple instructions before using an app. The next verb is scan. To scan a text means to look through it quickly for a particular piece of information, such as a date, price, or deadline. We can also use the phrase double check, which means to check something again to make sure it is correct. For example, I always double check important documents before submitting them. The verb misread means to read or understand something incorrectly. The verb overlook means to fail to notice an important detail. Other useful verbs include follow instructions and read carefully. Useful nouns include instructions, warning labels, manuals, forms, terms and conditions, and the small print. The small print refers to detailed information that is often written in very small letters. Useful adjectives include detailed, complicated, confusing, time-consuming, important, and straightforward. You can also use natural phrases such as I tend to be honest, it depends on, and especially when. These phrases will help your answer sound more flexible and conversational. The first question is, do you usually read instructions carefully? This question asks about your normal habit. You should explain whether you generally read carefully and mention situations in which you are more or less careful. You can begin with, yes, I usually do. Not always, to be honest. Or, it depends on how important the instructions are. Here is a Band 7 sample answer. Yes, I usually do, especially when the instructions are related to work or something important. I tend to read them twice because a small misunderstanding can lead to mistakes. However, if it is something simple, like setting up a basic app, I may just skim through it. Let's notice the useful language. Especially when introduces a specific situation. I tend to describes a usual habit. A small misunderstanding can lead to mistakes, gives a clear reason. Finally, the answer includes a natural contrast. However, if it is something simple, this makes the answer more realistic. You do not need to claim that you read every instruction carefully. A balanced and honest answer usually sounds more natural. Let's examine why the previous answer is effective. The first part is a direct response. Yes, I usually do. The examiner immediately understands the speaker's position. The next phrase gives a specific condition, especially when the instructions are related to work or something important. This adds precision. The speaker is not saying that all instructions receive the same level of attention. The answer then provides a clear reason. A small misunderstanding can lead to mistakes. This explains why careful reading matters. Finally, the speaker adds contrast. However, if it is something simple, I may just skim through it. This makes the answer sound natural and flexible, rather than memorized. A strong Part 1 answer does not need difficult vocabulary in every sentence. It needs a clear answer, a relevant reason, and one useful detail. Do not memorize the entire sample answer word for word. Instead, remember flexible frames, such as, yes, I usually do, especially when, I tend to, and, however, if it is something simple, you can then adapt these phrases to your own experience. The second question is, why do some people dislike reading long instructions? This question asks you to explain other people's behavior. You are not describing only your own habits. Use general subjects, such as some people, many users, or they may feel. Here is a Band 7 sample answer. I think many people dislike long instructions because they feel time-consuming and sometimes unnecessarily complicated. In daily life, people often want quick answers, so they prefer short steps, pictures, or video guides. Long written instructions can feel tiring, especially when the language is too technical. The first reason is that long instructions take a lot of time. The second reason is that the language may be complicated or technical. The answer also gives an alternative that people prefer: short steps, images, or videos. Useful vocabulary includes time-consuming, unnecessarily complicated, quick answers, and technical language. Instead of simply saying, they are boring, explain what makes them boring or difficult. That explanation will make your answer sound more developed. Let's build the previous answer step by step. The first possible reason is time. You could say, some people dislike long instructions because they do not want to spend several minutes reading before using a product. The second possible reason is language. Instructions may contain technical vocabulary that ordinary users do not understand. You could say, the language can be difficult, especially when the instructions are written for professionals. Another useful idea is that people prefer visual guidance. For example, many people would rather watch a short video than read several pages of instructions. You can support your answer with situations such as using an app, assembling furniture, completing an online form, reading a contract, or preparing for an examination. Avoid giving only a general statement, such as, people dislike instructions because they are boring. Instead, explain the source of the difficulty. You might say, they can feel boring because they contain too many details and do not show the important steps clearly. One concrete situation can make a simple answer much stronger. The third question is, have you ever made a mistake because you did not read something carefully? This question asks about a past experience, so use past tense verbs. You only need to tell a short mini story. Mention what happened, the mistake you made, and the result. A useful story frame is, actually, yes. One time I didn't notice. As a result, and since then I've tried to. Here is a Band 7 sample answer. Yes, actually. I once filled in an online form too quickly and missed one important instruction about the file format. As a result, my document was rejected and I had to submit it again. Since then, I have become more careful with forms and official documents. The answer begins directly. It then explains the situation and the exact mistake. The phrase, as a result, introduces the consequence. Finally, the speaker explains the lesson learned. This creates a complete story without becoming too long. The structure is past event, result, and lesson learned. That is an excellent pattern for many IELTS Part 1 questions about previous experiences. The fourth question is careful reading important in your work or studies? This question asks you to evaluate the importance of careful reading and explain your opinion. You can connect your answer to accuracy, safety, deadlines, grades, or following requirements correctly. Here is a Band 7 sample answer. Yes, definitely. In both work and studies, careful reading is important because instructions often contain small but essential details. For example, if a student misreads an assignment question, they may answer the wrong task. In the workplace, the same habit can prevent errors and save time. The phrase, yes, definitely, gives a clear and confident answer. The speaker then explains that small details may be essential. The student example shows a possible academic consequence. The workplace example broadens the answer and connects the same idea to a different context. Useful phrases include essential details, misread the question, answer the wrong task, prevent errors, and save time. One specific example is usually more effective than a long list of general benefits. Let's compare a weak answer with a stronger one. The weak answer is, yes, it is important because reading is important and people should read carefully. This answer is grammatically understandable, but it has several problems. First, it repeats the word important. Second, it does not explain why careful reading matters. Third, there is no example or consequence. A stronger version is, yes, especially in work or study, because small details can change what you need to do. For instance, if I misread a deadline or a requirement, I might complete the task incorrectly. This answer gives a specific context. It explains a clear consequence. It also uses a natural example. Notice that the vocabulary is not extremely difficult. The answer is stronger because the details are meaningful. Band 7 answers are not longer because they contain unnecessary fillers. They are longer because the speaker adds useful explanations, consequences, and examples. Focus on developing the idea rather than adding random words. Now it is time to practice. Use the following answer frame. First, answer the question directly. Second, give one reason. Third, add an example or useful detail. You can also add a short contrast when it makes the answer more natural. Try answering these 4 questions. Number 1, do you usually read instructions carefully? Number 2, why do some people dislike long instructions? Number 3, have you ever made a mistake because you did not read something carefully? And number 4, is careful reading important in your work or studies? Try to speak for approximately 20 to 30 seconds for each question. Do not read the sample answers word for word. Use your own experiences and opinions. After recording yourself, check 3 things. Did you answer the exact question? Did you give a clear reason? And did you include one meaningful detail? Practicing this simple structure will make your answers more organized and easier to understand. Let's finish with a quick review. When describing a careful habit, you can say, yes, I usually do, especially when the answer depends on the situation, say, it depends on how important the information is. When explaining other people's behavior, use, many people dislike it because. When telling a short past story, begin with, one time, I. Then introduce the consequence with, as a result. Useful topic vocabulary includes skim, scan, double check, misread, overlook, instructions, technical language, and essential details. Remember the main Part 1 strategy. Answer simply. Add one clear reason. Support it with one specific detail. You do not need an extremely long response or highly complicated vocabulary. Clear, natural, and relevant English will always be more effective. Thank you for watching Fluent English Daily. Practice the 4 questions aloud and use the ARD structure to make every answer clearer and more complete.